Party people. Oh, okay. Give it a. What's the saying? I'll give it a few minutes. Oh, y'all quick with it. First, let me show off my dealer Shay, Boston Zone. I'm really hoping to have a interactive discussion today, so I need y'all in the comments. I really need y'all in the comments. And I might as well start off. I don't know who the five of y'all are, but why wait? Y'all are on time with it. Um, so the title of the live is Race, Gender, and Politics, and I've been having these kind of quiet conversations with friends of mine in my safe circles before I broadened it out to this group. But I wanted to talk to you guys about it, friends, associates, followers, y'all. Peace, James. Yeah, let's definitely link either this evening. Well, it's getting kind of late in the evening. Maybe tomorrow. I'm free anytime after 9:30 once the stock market's open. So so here's my question. I'm hoping. Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about the sweater. The sweater is from Boston's own designer D. Lachey. Let me put her in the comments. Man, she got some fly stuff. She's been had fly stuff. I've been rocking her stuff for a couple of years now. But if you check out, I don't know why I didn't tag. I'm getting old with it. But if you look her up in Boston or look her up online, she got an Etsy web page. She was in black market all the time before COVID. But check out D. Lachey. Brilliant sister from the city of Boston doing great design work. She got the king sweatshirt that I have is from her too. I buy a lot of clothes from. She has men and for women, so you'd like it. So I'm hoping some women join the conversation too, because I really need the opinion of some of the women that I trust. And see, there you go. I figured you'd be on it. I figured you'd be on it. But I also want to talk to. The timer's not running, but that's weird. Well, yeah, I hear. So um, let me know if I fade out or anything like that. So race, gender, and politics. Right. Let's start with those three. So I'll start with the gender part because I wanna go. I'm not going in any kind of order, but I think I am. So bear with me. So I was talking to a woman who was a friend of mine, and I was exploring conversations. I was exploring conversations with her that I had privately with men that I know. And as many of you might know, I do political consulting. I'm in and around politics often. And the current move, wave, whatever you want to call it, is about empowering more women in politics. And not only in elected seats, but all the way through campaign managers, staffers, chief of staff, you name it. And this was before Stacey Abrams. This is before Vice President Harris. This has been a movement that's going on for several years now. Um, and I think it's dope. And in my past, I was always a supporter of Emerge, which is a dope training course for women getting into politics. I learned early that you have to encourage women a lot more to run for office. And then I learned, as a being an elected official and around women who are running for office and holding elected office, realize how much more grueling it is in terms of dealing with the sexist comments, from the sexist questions from reporters, the different types of judgment that women receive campaigning versus men. Stuff about balancing a household, certain questions that aren't really pushed towards men the same way they're pushed towards women, right? So I always try to encourage that. So I had this conversation. So men in the background, I won't name any names. They're like, "Oh man, there's no black man in the Boston City Council. Where's the black voices? Are black men shut out of politics now?" And you see it continue to gear up, and I'm seeing it. Even you're seeing it in the mayor's race, where I've seen women who might be watching this live say they don't want to see any men run for mayor this year in the city of Boston because they have three qualified women of color, and to them that's enough. They don't even want to see a man run. It's their opinion. They own it. That's cool. I'm not even going to opine on their opinion. But there's a sentiment amongst men about that, right? When they hear it, they internalize it. And we've had some conversations in private about that. And I'll keep the conversations private, but I want to share the sentiment publicly. So I took those sentiments and I asked a woman that I'm close with, that's in the politics, and I said, so is the push I was trying to understand kind of, 'cause I'm still a man, so I'm limited in my view. I need to speak to women to understand a woman's opinion. And I asked, I said, is the push for women in general, or is the push for, um, quality women? And even when I said it, I'm like, "Ugh, this still feels like a sexist kind of sort of little misogynist comment." But it was, I'm in a safe space. I'm talking to my homegirl. So and I said, and you got to give it to me straight. And she gave it to me straight. And she said, "Hey, can somebody let me know if y'all can hear me? Because it says that it's broadcasting, but the timer is not running at all." And that kind of makes me nervous. So just somebody put a thumbs up or something that you hear what I'm saying. Yes? I got to pause for a second because it bugged me out to be on here rambling and no one's listening to this ramble. And I'm trying to have actually a conversation where I need feedback. So can y'all hear me? No? Nobody gonna say nothing? Okay. Ho! Happy belated. I shouted you out on my birthday, on your birthday, on my show yesterday. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was good. Thank you. Oh, signal and sound keep going out, freezing a lot. Oh, well, I don't know if that's me or you. It looks like I got a steady signal, but I'll keep going on. I don't want to hold y'all. So the sentiment my homegirl told me was like, listen, women have been shut out for so long that it's not even about necessarily vetting every single woman. Of course, they want quality women, but the whole idea is to bust through the wall and bust through the ceiling and make sure that the women are present, and then we can get to sorting out who's quality and who's not. And I had to sit with that for a minute, and when I sat with it, it made perfect sense. And then I had to go back to the men who I had been talking to and having these conversations with, and kind of explain the sentiment, how I had internalized it. So I can the best way I can explain it was I had to relate it to racism, right? So that's why this is racism, gender, and politics. Because in politics or in race, a lot of people see we're celebrating first. Still, imagine black people have been here in this country for 500 years or so, and we're still celebrating firsts. We're still celebrating first presidents, first governors. I haven't even gotten the first mayor yet, not in the first elected mayor yet. First everything, first in these positions in corporate America, first in these places in sports. And the only reason why we're so late in celebrating these firsts is because of the previous exclusion. And so now when I relate it that way, I realize that women have been excluded almost, especially black women, have been excluded as long, if not longer, than black men and men in general, right? So I'm trying to figure out how we process this as a community, and this is where I need people to really have. Do I have a fan on there? You know what I mean? I got the central air, but that's not me. I even got the fancy lavalier mic. So I want to figure out how we're processing it as a community, especially when it comes to politics, the third point, right? Gender, race, and politics. So in the city of Boston right now, there are 3 women of color. I'll get into that. 3 women of color running to be Boston's mayor. And shortly joining will be rumored to be joining shortly are 2 men of color. Actually, I think State Representative John Santiago has declared. So Latino man of color, and then another man of color, John Barros, is rumored to get in. So I've seen the celebration. I've seen the adulation for City Councilor Kim Janey, who's going to become the acting mayor, and she'll be the first person of color in that role. And I've seen the same kind of celebration for even Commissioner Gross, the first black man in his role as Boston Police Commissioner. And so I'm trying to figure out where it intersects, and this is the open question to everybody. Central Air just turned off. What is the most important thing when we look at race, gender, and politics, especially as we're looking at candidates for mayor, for city council, both at large and district? And this is why I asked. I watched Councilor Anissa Asabi George on a podcast the other day, and she was pretty good about, my opinion, I think she was pretty good about describing how she identifies as an Arab woman, and and still recognizes her Polish descent in terms of her identity. And then she wisely, as a politician, um, went on to talk about the work, right? It's a wise move. Um, I've also heard chatter in the community, and I've had the same thoughts myself. We have an idea about how we want people of color to present, right? If you're a person of color, what are the expectations that come from the community of color when somebody campaigns as or identifies as a person of color? So that's my first question: is when you have a candidate of color, what expectations come with that? And that's not germane only to Councilor Asabi George. Councilor Michelle Wu is a woman of color of Asian descent, and she is also running. And so she's a person of color. Do you have the same expectations on a Michelle Wu as an Asian woman as you do of Councilor Asabi George as an Arab woman? And then the third candidate, that's a woman, it presents obviously all day as a woman of color, just like I don't think it's ambiguous, and the ambiguousness of it. It varies depending on our own lens that we're looking at. Like, some people I'm sure can look at Councilor Asabi George and see that there's an ethnic mix in her facial structure, in the tone of her skin, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, it's more pronounced in our society. It's easier defined in the look of Michelle Wu. And Andrea Campbell, as our third candidate for mayor, is a black woman all day, every day, right? There's no ambiguity around that at all, I don't think. But what are the expectations that come? Are they the same for these three candidates being women of color? Are they different? And, ideologically, I try to say, well, I'm all about the work too. I don't, I say to myself, the politically correct answer is, I don't care if the person is green, purple, yellow, or red. As long as they're doing the work that serves the people in my community that I care about, blah, 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 blah. Politicians, we kick that spiel all the time. But going back to the original sentiment that I shared, do we want to knock down ceilings by putting a woman in? Do you want to knock down certain ceilings by making sure a black woman gets in, regardless necessarily of the qualifications? Like, some people think, let's knock down the ceiling first, and then we'll start to vet people a little bit more thoroughly after that. Like, we're going to get Obama in regardless of what our expectations are, and whether he meets them or not, we're going to re-elect him just so he can get his 8 years, and then we go back, and then we'll start to figure it out. So I'm curious. I'm going to ask again. I'm hoping to seek answers in the comment. I appreciate the ones that are already coming in. How do you feel? What are your expectations based on race and gender in choosing a candidate to vote for mayor and or the city council? And I'm going to pause a little bit because I really want people in the comments to drop that in here. Let me read what's up here now. They understand the historical complexities of political and economic deprivation of black people. That's a good expectation. So one of the comments is based on race. You expect them to understand the historical complexities of political and economic deprivation of black people. Around gender, they are clear about family roles and gender pay and inequality across the board. I think those are great feedback. I appreciate that, brother. Now I'm going to challenge, not you per se, but the thought of the first one, understanding the historical complexities of political and economic deprivation of black people. How would a candidate for mayor or city councilor define that? How would they exhibit to you that they understand the historical complexities? And then I'll go one further. How would they show that they understand it? And then my expectation would be, once you understand it, what do you plan to do about it with your understanding? Because, people are quick to throw out the cliche, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? That's the cliche I think that's applicable. So where do we go from there? So let's say that Councilor Asabi George, Councilor Wu, and Councilor Campbell all understand the historical complexities and political and economic deprivation of black people. Let's say they understand it. Let's say they all say, yo, listen, in the city of Boston, black people have been, they've been deprived of these issues or these things and these opportunities for decades and generations, and it has led to health disparities. Well, I don't want to give them. They should understand it, but I ain't gonna give you the pitch. They got to pay. I said I'm a political consultant. You got to pay for the pitch. Um, but let's say they display it. Then what? Does the community of color, does the black community and other communities of color have the wherewithal to be able to go through their track record? Because if they understand those things, what are the expectations that come with it? What do they expect? Have those counselors been talking about that historical complexity? Have they worked against it? Have they worked to improve it? These are the questions I wonder, and now I get a little nervous when the chat room gets quiet. Like, what are we thinking? You know what I mean? I see there's only a few of us in here, but let's talk. Like, are you voting? I mean, we know that there's people that voted for Obama because he was black. Some people voted because he was black and he talked well. Some people voted because he was black, talked well, and they liked some of his ideas. Right? It varied. So I'm just asking, those of you that are on, what is it for you? Nobody talking today, huh? I mean, I can go back to doing what I was doing. I'm sorry if I. Oh, here we go. There's always one brother holding it down. I appreciate it. They would do a political briefing of economic inequalities and advancing policies to reverse it. Okay. So I agree. I think that their actions then, with those three candidates, let's look at those three candidates. Let's look at Michelle Wu, I believe, was elected in 2013, 13 or 15. Andrea Campbell came on, was elected in 2015, so she started in 2016, sworn in. I think Anissa Essaibi George, Councilor Essaibi George, came on the same year. So they all have about 6 to 7 years in their tenure. Let me back up a minute. Well, no, I'll stay right there. They have about 6, 7 years in their tenure. So you can go back and look. You can check their Twitter. You can check their Facebook. You can look at their websites. You can ask people that have been in staffers and worked in City Hall. Hopefully you've been paying attention, but you'd have to see some kind of track record that they've done something. I mean, 2 of them I think have been city council. Campbell's been city council president. One of them has been city council president. I think, no, Councilor Wu too. So 2 of them have been city council president. They've been able to set the agenda for the whole city council body. You would see kind of this effort. They've been able to vote up or down on the budget, whether the budget is reflective of their values. You know what I mean? Like I read a Globe article today. A Flobe article today that said that Councilor Campbell is proposing cutting $50 million of OT if she's mayor from the police department. And that's interesting because I'd have to go back and check to see how many budgets did she vote up in favor of that had all that overtime in it. And so why would you support those budgets if you felt like they were inflated before, but now saying that you're going to be mayor, you would then cut that budget. I'm not sure if I see that as genuine or disingenuous. So those are the counterbalances I'd have to look at. So for the Conrad, hey, thank you for that comment the other day, man. I saw it in the inbox just now before I signed in. I didn't get to respond. His comment was there has to be a thorough vetting of their record on these issues. Right. But ideally, that would be nice. But we know out of the 40,000 voters that vote for mayor, 60,000 voters that vote for mayor every year, everybody vets differently. And that's what I'm asking. Everybody has a different value system. I'm not going to act like everybody's a monolith and that, every neighborhood thinks the same, or that all the women are thinking the same thing, or all the black people are thinking the same thing. So what does that vetting look like for everybody? That's what I'm trying to work to, and I've been saying it on my radio show on Sundays at 10 a.m. on Spark FM Online. I've been saying it in these lives. That's where I really want the energy to be focused, is how we vet candidates, because up until now, and I'm not going to say there's no progress. Obviously, there's always incremental progress, but there hasn't been enough progress to really rise the tide, I guess. I'm looking for a cliche or a metaphor that works. It hasn't lifted enough people out of poverty. It hasn't done enough to change the system. And some of these people have been in office for 5, 7, even 10 years, and these issues are going back to 2 generations. Right now, I'm not saying that they're responsible for changing it, but I do think they're responsible for challenging, for strategizing, for affecting and impacting policy, and organizing communities so they can do exactly what you're talking about there, vetting candidates and vetting issues based on their merit. And that's not the case. So when I read when I read the paper and I read about the police force being majority white, and the Boston Fire Department being majority white, and now for the first time in a long time, the city council is not majority white male. We have changes that we're seeing around on the surface level of demographics of the city, now seeing it in the Boston City Council, but you don't see it in kind of these large public bodies, right? You don't see the public employees changing. You don't see the police force becoming more diverse. You don't see the firefighters becoming more diverse. Another good question. Also, what is the people's agenda? What does the city want in terms of change, initiatives, and direction? And that's kind of, Jose, thank you for that, and I appreciate you tuning in. That's kind of what I'm asking is like, what are we doing as a community to create first we always have to have our individual agenda, right? Everybody's an individual. You know what you want. But then how do you bring that together with community, whether it's your block, whether it's your neighborhood, whether it's your church group, whether it's the larger community? How do we vet? How do we galvanize? How is a consensus built to vet and decide on which candidates and which strategies are best to help the people in our communities? And everybody keeps saying we need to figure it out, but we got to do the work to figure it out. And I know, and again, let me shout out some people that are, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can operate in silos as long as the silos have some communication, which I think is going on now. But I think it needs to spread wider in the community, throughout the community, especially communities of color in Boston. As people may have read in the Boston Globe the other day, there was a nice article about efforts led by former State Senator Diane Wilkerson. Now, regardless of how you feel about the name of the effort or what have you, I've been able to be a small part of the effort in terms of just helping in terms of policy questions and things like that. I'm not trying to get too deep into it because there's enough talent in there, and I'm a little bit more removed from the city of Boston. I'm not as knee deep into it as I used to be. So that's an effort that's going on now where people are shaping questions that speak to the needs of the community. But the more voices that inform it and the more voices that absorb it, the better it is to build that consensus out to a wider level. All right. Another group that's doing that. So I say that to say, if you're really interested in this kind of work, you need to plug in with Senator Wilkerson, with Mukia Baker Gomez, with Stephanie Everett Esquire, and several others that are part of that group who are working on creating a community questionnaire. These are my opinions I'm about to share with you. From what I see in the questions, from what I've seen in the process, it is a very fair process. The questions are standard. They're very similar to what I was receiving from special interest groups and other groups that were endorsing when I was a state rep and running for office for city council or state legislature. So the questions are about, but they're geared towards serving the black community. So if that's the interest, plug in. And I'll try to find a link later on to put into this chat. And if anybody else has a link for that, please plug in. But so if you're on Facebook, you can find Senator Wilkerson because she's on Facebook, right? You can find Stephanie Everett because she's on Facebook. You can find Mukia Baker Gomez because she's on Facebook. There's a similar effort being hosted by Reverend Mariama White Hammond. And I'm just naming some of the chairs. Like, the effort is much bigger than the people I'm naming. Don't think it's just 3 people doing it. There's groups of 40 over here. There's a group of 70 over here. And it'll start to build and build. And that's what we need to do, is continue to build it out exponentially. Reverend Mariama White Hammond, people from Right to the City, Eric Estevez, so I want to say, it's not Suzanne. I know Suzanne Lee is part of Right to the City, but there's a couple other, Lynette Lee. There's another group doing the same kind of issues, having open forums. So before I read that comment, so plug into these. They're developing questionnaires that are based on the needs of the community. But the more people that support the questionnaire, the more power that questionnaire has over these 3 candidates. You get what I'm saying? Or 4 candidates, or 5 candidates, however big the field goes. The more people that buy in and say, yeah, this is my questionnaire too, and I need these answers, the more powerful that questionnaire becomes. The more that becomes a contract with whoever is chosen, right? And I say that contract piece because, let me give you an example in history. Before everybody goes down the 2013 rabbit hole of what happened and It could have been Charlotte, or it could have been John, or it could have been Felix. It wasn't them. So I want to deal with what really happened, right? Martin J. Walsh and John Connolly. You got Martin J. Walsh, 7 of us, myself included. And I'm saying this part because I'm part of that. I was part of that process. 7 elected officials that represent communities of color, black communities, and Latin communities, and everybody else from the diaspora. We chose Martin J. Walsh because we sat down with him and asked him about specific issues that were germane to our communities. Now, 4 years later, I was no longer in political office. He had a challenger, and the 7 elected officials, or 6 of them, because one of them became a challenger, Tito Jackson, either became quiet, silent, or they backed Marty again. I don't remember Councilor Tito Jackson getting any support or endorsements from any sitting black elected official. So therefore, whatever contract, whatever leverage we had over Marty at that time was let go of. Because that questionnaire, the questions we asked him, the things we asked him to do, when they're not done, there has to be, for lack of a better word, a punishment, a result. There has to be a result, right? Same thing with these questionnaires. If you don't fill out the questionnaire, or you don't follow through on the things on the questionnaire, that group doesn't support you the next time that you come back to them. And that's the idea that Senator Wilkinson and others, and Mariama White Hammond and others are trying to develop. They're trying to say, this is a social contract that we're creating with you, that you're going to prioritize the issues that Brother Hakeem mentioned earlier in the chat about the historical complexities of political and economic deprivation of black people in Boston. So if you said you understood that, and you're going to work on making Madison Park a model vocational school, and you're going to make sure that there's a pipeline into the unions, and you don't do that, then you're not supposed to get the support 4 years later. If you're not improving education for black and brown children in Boston in a real way, in a measurable way, then you're not supposed to get the support 4 years later when you come back, or 2 years later if you're running for city council. So I think we missed that part of the deal. And it's a deal. It's a contract. I tell people all the time, politics is transactional. I give you my vote in exchange for your service. And we set that expectation up front. And if you don't meet my level of service, then you don't get my vote. You don't get my donation. You don't get nothing. You might actually get some bad words spread about you in my community. That's how I think it's supposed to go. So let me get into these comments, and I'm glad we can have the conversation, because I don't want to preach. It's not a pulpit. It's not Sunday. My Sunday show is in the morning, but it's not church. Having open forums with the candidates having open forums with the candidates being asked detailed explanations on their views and specific issues. Yes, a good idea, and especially now in COVID, a lot of these will be held online, right? You'll see a lot of things held online, Zooms and what have you. But I want to stress again the story that I just told you. Candidates will, not all candidates, I'm generalizing. Candidates will say anything. Electoral politics is totally different from governing. A lot of us will put anything on a flyer that sounds good. We find pictures of, black families, single mothers, elderly. I mean, there's a science to it, right? We put as many different images that get as broad a coalition to relate to us, so that we can win your vote over. So what we'll say in a forum is great. We'll say anything in a forum. Like, ain't nobody gonna go to a forum and say, nah, I'm against closing the achievement gap. That's just not my thing. Or they're not gonna show up in a forum and say, no, I don't really care about youth violence. That's not my thing. Like, they're always going to promise you something. I think the question is, what is the community gonna do? What is your expectation of what they should do? Now, obviously, there's some gaps, right? We have to have an education of what they're able to do, and that's what they could be honest about. But we have to start educating ourselves as well. Like, this has to be a conversation that's almost, over the next 6 months, it should almost be daily or weekly. Like, if you're not talking to your neighbors about this, every week, if you're not talking to your friends about this every week, then you're going to get whatever happens to you in September and November. Another comment, it says it's divide and conquer. We have too many candidates trying to run. I disagree, and different than our tax debate this morning. But this is why I disagree. The more candidates, in my experience, the more candidates, the better. I mean, they're not forcing you to. You get to choose who you want. So, you know, of course, they're thinking like, oh, there's a blocks of votes. I'm not going to assume that because you're a person of color, you're automatically going to vote for a person of color. I'm not going to assume that if you're white, you're automatically going to vote for someone white. So I've never, I don't complain about more choices. I'm just going to push back. I don't have another way to put it. Like, more choices, I don't see how choices is a bad thing. It'll get whittled down to two, and then you have choices of two. So, I think divide and conquer is too easy to say. I think that the challenge is the community being informed, not having less choices, but being informed about all the choices that they have so they can make the best informed choices. You know what I mean? If I give you a menu with 2 things on it, do you like it as much as a menu with 7 things on it? Like, you know what I mean? You want the menu that has the most dishes. My brother Don, I think officials forget they work for the people, and we the people have forgotten too. That second part. I mean, the only way the officials can forget that they work for you is because you are terrible as a supervisor. You a bad manager. You know what I'm saying? You started them on their first day of the job, and you ain't check in with them. You know what I mean? If you show up at your job, any job, whatever job we got, let's say you're a carpenter, and you come on site the first day, and I hand you a hammer and some nails, and say, hey, you said you were going to help me build a house, go start. And I come back 2 or 3 months later, and you done built it crooked, or the foundation's not right. I can't come and critique you now and be like, yo, what are you doing? I was supposed to be there showing you, managing you. I mean, I think people think that they have all the answers because they're a candidate. Like, so you think because someone's running for mayor, they understand how public works and how to clear the city full of snow? You think because someone's running for mayor, they've managed 3,000 people in the building and 18,000 employees in the city? No, they've never done that before. Unless you're getting a candidate that's already been a mayor somewhere else, they've never done it before. So why would you think they can do it on their own? They can't. Some of these candidates never managed nobody except for their staff in City Hall. So take them off the pedestal. You know what I'm saying? Stop worshiping the golden lamb. What is the meme that goes out? Thinking that the politician is going to do what they're really supposed to do is like thinking that the stripper really likes you. Like, no, it's a transaction that happens. Trade your vote for something. Trade your vote for something. Get a promise. And when and you can't force them to do it, but if the promise is not kept 2 years or 4 years later, it's your responsibility to show them the door. And if you don't, then that's on you. You can't complain about, oh, politicians don't be. No, that's on you. You have to manage better. And for those of you that know politics, you have to inform your community. Yeah, the politicians could do a much better job, and I'm on them all the time about printing flyers and giving you information and doing websites and opening up district offices like some of them are doing, and it could be a lot more done. And I understand the pressures that society's putting on families, and we don't always have time. But listen, let's be honest. We find time for the things that are important to us. We find time to watch the TV show that helps us escape. We find time to go to make it to the gym. We find time to spend time with people who are important to us. So if your community, if the politics in your community, if the policies that govern your community, if the money and the budgets that allow people in your community to have jobs, meaningful jobs, all the things we say we want, if they're really important to you, then you would be on it too, regardless of what you have going on. Now, there's exceptions to that rule. Obviously, there's families that are so destitute that they really don't have time. But if you have time to be listening to me on this live, if you have time to be replaying this live, then you're not the exception. You got time to research. You got time to call a city council office. You got time to ask your 5 city councilors that represent you to do something for you, to make you a promise. You have time for it. If you ain't making time for it, then you're really not politicking. You're really just kind of in the stands watching the game. You're not impacting the game, and you could. Because like Brother Don says, your voice has power. Like, I got into politics because there's layers to this, there's levels to what I'm about to say, so don't take it at face value, but hear me out. The one place where things get equal is at the polling location. Regardless of how much money you have, regardless of your socioeconomic status, your race, your gender, once you're 18, you can register to vote. I get one vote. I get the same amount of votes as a millionaire. I get the same amount of votes as a 19-year-old. I get the same amount of votes as a white woman. I get the same amount of votes as a Catholic man. It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. Now, yes, there's money that goes into it in the background and institutional. I get that part of it. But it boils down to a numbers game. And you ain't going to tell me that in the neighborhood, let me make sure I quote it right. Brother Hakeem said earlier, you ain't going to tell me that in the communities where historically we have been deprived of political and economic status, we still got the voting numbers. We still have enough adults over the age of 18, what we call that in politics, voting age population. There are enough adults of voting age population to win any seat in the city of Boston. Any seat in the city of Boston, especially Maine. So we out of excuses. We really are out of excuses. There's no excuse for people that claim themselves to be activists and organizers to not focus their efforts on the biggest. Listen, the mayor, everybody knows the mayor of Boston is the biggest, most powerful seat in the city. Everything goes through that office. The potholes go through that office. The community meetings you have go through that office. Where the police patrol go through that office. Where the contracts go or do not go through that office. Talented people being pulled from communities into powerful roles to shape their own destiny and to shape the destiny of their communities goes through that office. It is a pressure point. It is a pinch point. If you're not going to influence that office, what the are you doing? And as a community, I would have to ask, what the are we doing? Are we for real? Are we serious? Or is it kind of just like, I just like to complain a lot. I ain't trying to listen, I just want to be listened to. I mean, this game is serious. We're talking about billions of dollars. You know what I'm saying? If you're paying attention to what BECMA is saying, if you ever heard of BECMA, Google it. BECMA. Black Economic Council of Massachusetts. They're suing the city because we're losing out on billions of dollars over years and years. Hundreds of millions of dollars that could come back in the community. And I know for some of us, that's hard to fathom, right? Because we've never seen it. We don't see those kind of numbers. So when I say hundreds of millions of dollars, you're like, oh, coming into the community, how? All kinds of ways. All kinds of ways. Thriving businesses. It's the difference between pulling in to your around the way tire shop. Let me give you an example. You pull in, we got these tire shops around the way where, you get a flat, you're not going to the big chain, and not if you live in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, or even East Boston, right? You go to the around the way spot. You know what I'm saying? Poppy got the tires, you got the used tires, he can get you new tires in a day or two. You might pass a tire for you. And that's his business. And that feeds his kids. And that feeds the employees that he hires right from that community, right? And he's grinding it out. Poppy's grinding it out day in and day out to make sure he's making ends meet. Now, if we were behind BECMA doing what we needed to do, we were supporting the efforts of BECMA. Shout out to Shagun Idowu, the chair and president of BECMA, but only one of many that support that effort. Imagine if Poppy got a contract with the city, because the city, they buy mad cars with your dough, with your money, with your sales tax, with your property tax, with the money that they get from tickets when you don't park legally, right? Think about every police car, every ambulance, every fire truck, every city employee that drives a city car. We just talking tires and Poppy right now. All of those, if he got the contract to service even one of those, all of a sudden, Poppy's shop wouldn't look like a corner store. It would be large. It would go from having 4 employees to maybe having 34 employees. And maybe those 34 employees, instead of 4 employees making menial wages, now you got levels of management at Poppy's shop. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Montesino's Tire down on Blue Hill Avenue. That's the shop I've gone to my whole life because that's where my father took me. But now they got 34 employees. And now those employees are making good money because they got a contract. He can forecast his business. He knows how much money he's making for the next 3 years. So now, not only can Poppy send his kids to college or to trades or they can start their own business, but so can now the 34 employees instead of 4. You see what I'm saying? That's what these contracts do. And if you start to multiply that out, those same cars that got tires, they got glass. You know what I'm saying? The people that ride in them, they got uniforms on. Someone sells them the uniforms. They buy the pens. They buy the paper. They buy toilet paper. Every school got toilet paper. Every city building got toilet paper in it. Someone is buying toilet paper from someone. But we ain't in on those contracts. So when we talk about economic development, and you hear these candidates talk about it, if we're not talking about cutting these deals, then we really ain't. Let me read some of the comments. This might be a long one. I feel like I want this to be a conversation. Usually I try to get in and out in a half hour. We on 25 minutes. Y'all still ain't talking to me yet. So I'm going to hang around all day. I ain't got nothing to do. I cleared the calendar. Bostonians have short memories. I'm reading a comment. Bostonians have short memories. I remember we said we were going to hold politicians accountable, yet Michelle Wu still in office and now running for mayor. Good luck with holding people accountable, especially politicians and the people who vote for them. I'm not sure why, but it is what it is. Ruthella, I feel you. I thought they do have short memories. That's because we in this generation of this period of everything instant. I remember people were tight. So let me give a little history. Again, let me preface this. This is my personal opinion. You ain't got to adopt it. I think I voted for Michelle Wu when she first ran. And I like the fact she spent a lot of time in communities of color when she campaigned, right off the rip. Oh, first of all, let me back up a little bit. This is just a historical note, point of information, as an elder in the community used to say. Point of information. Michelle Wu was the second Asian American city councilor. I saw somebody trying to erase and change history. Sam Yoon was the first Asian American elected to the Boston City Council. Michelle Wu being the second. And she was touted as very much progressive, and she rode in on the coattails of Ayanna Pressley. Now, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, she kind of broke through the glass ceiling, the first black woman on the Boston City Council. Once that ceiling was open, she kind of took Michelle Wu under her wing and helped her campaign and pointed in the right. She kind of provided a model, a blueprint of how you can get elected. So Councilor Wu spent a lot of time with communities of color before she was elected. I have friends who they and their families were holding signs, were volunteering all through Dorchester, etc. Dope. She gets elected. I think in her first term, maybe second term, and Ruth Ella, this might be what you were referring to. But I remember when then Councilor Ayanna Pressley might have been up for city council president, Michelle Wu decided to vote for the city councilor from South Boston in District 2, Bill Lenahan. Now, for the insiders, and I'm dropping this knowledge because people say they want it, so I'll give it away. All the city councilors trade their vote. I'm talking to you about trading your vote. Let me tell you that they do this. At the city council level, 13 of them, every 2 years, it used to be yearly, but it's every 2 years now, they trade their vote for a committee assignment, for favors. Whoever's running for city council president, if you want my vote, you have to put me on a committee, you have to make me chair of the committee that I asked for. You see what I'm saying? And you need to get 7 votes to win the city council president. So if I want to be the education chair, I say to the city council, "Are you going to run for city council president?" I'd like to be the education chair. Why? Because one day I'm going to run for mayor and I want to say I'm the education guy. That's what John Connolly did back in the day. He branded himself the education guy because he was able to parlay his vote for city council president into the chair of education. And so you call hearings about education and you build your brand on education. So they're trading votes. So in that case, Michelle Wu elected. She chose to vote for Bill Linehan, made Bill Linehan city council president. And then in turn, she became the president after that. I'm sure there were deals cut there as well. But progressives were upset because Bill Linehan wasn't a progressive. And I'm using progressive, the term loosely. I throw up the air quotes because that means different things to different people too. But basically, on a ground level, it meant the advancement and recognition of the fact that, you know, black and brown people have been left behind, women have been left behind. There needs to be a lot to do to make equal pay, equal opportunity, access to opportunities from students, from children, all the way up to cradle to the grave. The reality is this: the system is designed to do what it's doing. Political education is important. Yeah. So this is what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to do my little part, Don. Just trying to give a little bit of education to those that want this level of education. I fear that not enough of us want this level of engagement, and that's why we are going to be either, which is cool, but we should at least trust those that are engaged at this level. But there's some disconnect in there, and I feel like there's a lot of work we need to do in our communities to build relationships. We just don't have a sense of solidarity. And I'm not talking about we are one or kumbaya and roasting s'mores, but I mean, damn, we got to trust somebody to lead. Like, can't be no leaders if nobody follows. You know, and so we find ourselves repeating the same things, the same issues, the same problems, and it drives me nuts. I'm 7 years removed from office, illegally removed from office, but 7 years removed from office. It's been 10 years since I first entered office. And the same things that I walked into in 2011 are the same things that communities are talking about now. Conrad, it might be too late for this election cycle, but finding and developing a candidate from the community who thoroughly understands and is passionate. I feel you on that, Conrad. And I'm leading training courses to develop, well, not necessarily develop individual candidates, but to give them the kind of the groundwork of what they should think about if they want to become a candidate, and campaign managers, and, you know, electoral staff. But I like to focus on the group, the community, rather than the candidates. No matter how the candidates, but I think that's a valid point. Let me acknowledge that. Let me say that again. I do think we do need to develop candidates. We need to develop leaders. I believe leaders develop other leaders. There have been young men and women around me since I got into politics, and many of them are in politics or some kind of service role leading. And that's not all because of me, but I want to take some credit for helping develop leaders, because I was developed as a leader. There were people that poured into me and showed me, you know, we throw a shout out to Doris Bunty, the late Doris Bunty, a small woman but a giant in all regards. And it's because of people like her pouring into people like me that developed a certain sense of ethics, of dedication to the neighborhood. Same thing with my interactions with, and I'm going to name a lot of women because it's History Month, right? So women like Sarah Ann Shaw, being able to watch women like Senator Diane Wilkerson. I mean, there's been so many people that are good models of leadership in terms of the policies that they push, in terms of the way they interact with the community. And I'm not saying anybody's perfect or sainthood, right? But we have a lot of models, right? Chuck, Mel, the list goes on and on. I've been able to sit with so many of them for so long. That's what spurred me to be a leader. And there's enough leaders out here now, maybe not of the same ilk, the same quality yet, but they're younger. We're younger. You know, the people we're mentioning now are in our elders now, right? They're in their 60s, 70s, 80s. Some of them have transitioned already. So hopefully in due time, some more of us reach their levels of service and dedication to their neighborhood. But the community, what was around them that made them great, if you ask me, was their relationship to the community. What made Mel great, in my opinion, was his relationship to the community. What made Chuck great, in my opinion, and made him undefeatable, or I couldn't defeat him in 2 runs, in my opinion, was his deep connection to the community. That's what makes a great candidate or politician, is their connection to the community. And the deeper their connection to the community and the larger that group is, the more accountable they are to that community. You know, the names that just got posted. Let me start with, let's say Chuck. May he rest in power. Nobody ever accused Chuck of being a sellout. And it's unfathomable. because his ties were too deep into the community. It couldn't be part of his DNA. It couldn't even be a thought in his head. Like, would you turn on the people that you've had 30, 40-year relationship with in a struggle? No, you wouldn't. But those relationships had to be formed to hold him like that, to strengthen him like that. Same thing with Mel. In a meeting last week, I was told Boston is the third richest city in the U.S. I wouldn't doubt it. There's billions here. You see them throw, when you see cranes on the skyline, all right, when you drive out, when you leave your house again, I was about to get into the fact that they're opening up Massachusetts, and that's going to be a disaster. But when you leave the house again, look at your skyline. When you see cranes on the skyline, when you see buildings going up, your city's doing good. Now, you might not have no dough in your pocket, but the city's doing good. Broke cities don't build tall buildings. Broke cities don't build at all. So the money's there. The opportunities are there. What's not there is leadership that's ready to wrestle it, to fight for it, to snatch it. And I'm not talking about just using words like, we demand opportunity. I mean having a strategy that yields that result. And in my experience, my 15 years of experience around Boston politics, the mayor's seat is the best seat to control. Now, you ain't gonna have total control over it as a community. I mean, you don't think, of course, the developers downtown that have the millions and billions and that are donating, all this money into the OCPF accounts of these candidates, they got their say too. They know the game as well, and they're trying to keep access to what they have. But you want to be able to counter that demand. You want to be able to have a community pull on them as well. And if we're not going to do that, so we're going to just keep reading articles about there's 3 women running. What does that mean? There's 3 women of color running. What does that mean? Two more people of color. So now you got 5 people of color. Not a white guy in sight. Who are you going to blame it on? So what's our expectation? What is the Let's say you get 5 candidates of color. No, for the first time in the history of Boston, let's say no white Irish Catholic man applies for the position. So you're going to get a person of color. Then what? Then what? You're going to sit back and you're going to post your selfie with them? You're going to wait to see what happens? I don't know. I just felt like having this conversation. I've seen, I appreciate those that chimed in. I see, not too many want to talk about it. I guess people want to keep their thoughts to themselves, but I'm just curious, like what, and a lot of people have already chosen, like what is your expectation? What is your expectation? Healthcare is the #1 sector in Boston, leads there. We need businesses that tap into those resources. See, I like this conversation. I like that idea because there's so many different sectors. There's so many different $1 million sectors in the city of Boston. Every time a building comes down, every time a building goes up. Well, healthcare is a good example because people are always going to get sick. People are always going to want help. People are always going to, it's like a barbershop. Hair is always going to grow. We started a landscaping company called Universal Groundwork in the city of Boston. My man said, what was good about this? He said, it's like the barbershop. He said, grass is going to grow every year. We're going to have business every year. So breaking into these sectors, it requires skilled leadership. It requires advocates that can talk to senior level of executives and have conversations about how to diversify their pipeline, about opening up, about partnerships with not only local colleges, but maybe some HBCUs so that the transplants coming into Boston can land somewhere and stay here in the city. Black people are scared to ask for help. Are we? And if we are, what does that mean? Like, we scared to ask for help. We ain't scared to complain. We ain't, you know what I'm saying? Like, at what point do we switch from, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, right? At what point do we mobilize into action? I mean, because whether you ask for help or not, it's apparent. Everybody knows. Everybody can see that, every year there's going to be some people, some academics to do a study to say that we're suffering. Oh, blacks are suffering. The household value is down. Unemployment is up. Violence is on the rise. What do we blacks in Boston just lost 2-3 years in their life expectancy since COVID has arrived. Like, we know we under the thumb. So, what, is it a pride thing? We sitting around like we waiting for a messiah? I'm not challenging you, brother. I mean, go ahead, reword it. I like the ideas. I appreciate you kicking it. Like, I do believe that, we don't want to admit. It's like, black businesses don't always want to open their books to take advice or to take it. Listen, I'm a political consultant, right? This is how I relate. I can relate. You don't even have to reword it because I get what you're saying. There are candidates that I meet, first time candidates that I meet, and I give them advice. I mean, sound advice before I even give them a billable hour, and they be like, I don't know if I really. And I'm looking at them like, you ain't gonna take the advice of somebody that has already been there. Like, so are we that prideful and scared to accept a shoulder to lean on, or a hand to pull you up? We want to be able to say what we want to be able to say. We did it ourselves. What is it, a bootstrap thing? Like, it's frustrating. Yeah, technical assistance. I mean, sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right? I can concede to that. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And we are scared to ask for technical assistance to go after wealth building strategies, no doubt. Because, again, we don't know that we even need technical assistance, right? Even that term. I mean, that's what I offer to candidates. I offer them political technical assistance, right? I'm helping them build infrastructure in their organization so that they can run for office. Man, I feel like I'm on here just venting frustration, but we have so much potential in our communities. We have so much, we just don't have enough direction in our community. So I guess the reason why I came to talk to y'all today is really just to appeal. I want everybody to be righteous, but we just need more leadership. Righteous leadership, like, that puts the community first. We got to check our values. Like, is it about popularity, or is it about really moving the needle? And is the incremental move enough, or do we need to start to reevaluate the strategy? This is how I look at it. And I'm going to start to wrap it up because I just feel like I'm just getting long-winded now. The politics part of it. The city council has 13 seats on it. If you want to control it, you need to control 7 of those seats. Right? The special election has been canceled. Why was it canceled? Because Councilor Ricardo Arroyo put forth a policy and got 6 more of his colleagues or more to vote on. So now you get 7. His policy, which I feel is good for the community, moves forward. He built consensus. To me, that's real leadership. He saw a problem, came up with an idea, executed it, got his colleagues to vote for it, and it happened. Right? So now I'm looking at Ricardo Arroyo like, well, like, I texted the brother like, yo, I see you. Because that's how politics is supposed to work. It ain't just the. So you need 7 people. Let's say you wanted to move an agenda. I need 7 people on the city council that think alike, not exactly the same, but have similar values and think alike to move a certain agenda along. If the agenda, let me scroll up so I get it right. If the agenda is to move us beyond the historical complexities of political and economic deprivation of black people that we've been under for decades, if not hundreds of years in this city, then you want to have 7 people on that body. So think about who's on the body right now. No, matter of fact, forget who's on the body right now. Everybody on the body right now is up for election this year. Think about it as a clean slate. Who are the 7 people you're going to put on the body? Now, you might be thinking, well, how can I put up someone on the body? I mean, you get to vote for 5 of them. Let me say it again. Out of 13, you get to vote for 5 of them. You live in a district, you get to vote for your district councilor. Then you get up to 4 votes for an at-large councilor. Right? That's 5. We almost to 7. So if you choose wisely, if you talk to your neighbor, and your neighbor talks to their neighbor, and y'all have your own, I don't mean to use little. See, that's, you hanging around these black women, they be saying little. if you have your own Zoom online conversations, your socially distant conversations from porch to porch, and you figure out, hey, who are the five that are best for our block? Who are the five best for our families? Who are the five that are best for our issues? Who are the five that are best for our communities? It don't mean that you take one of the votes and throw them away and say, well, I always see this name on the ballot, I'm just going to vote for that one. No, man, that's not it. That's not the strategy. The strategy is finding 4 at-large counselors that think alike. So maybe you don't know all 4 of them. Maybe you don't know the candidates. Maybe you don't have time for it. Find someone that you trust that does, and ask them what they think. You know what I'm saying? If you respect the wisdom of Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, pay attention to who she endorses. Now, the reason why I named her, now a lot of politicians endorse, and sometimes the endorsements don't mean anything. But the reason why I named Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is because I used to serve with her in government. And I don't know many people, and I don't even think I know anyone who's more thoughtful, more calculated about their endorsements and what they mean for the candidate, the community, and for herself than Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. And she was like this before she was a congresswoman, even as a city councilor. For those that are in politics, think about it. There's not often did you see her endorse somebody unless she really rocked with that person. So 5, you got 5 people to control there. That's the easiest place to control it. And then you got the same vote for mayor. So think about that as you vet your candidates this summer. Not just what they're saying, what can they do? What have they done? The good thing about this race that's different from most is that everybody so far that has run is a political insider. And what I'll tell you about political insiders is they have a track record. The track record might be good, the track record might be bad, but they have to stand on their record. So all the things that they say that they're going to do when they campaign this summer, when you see them in your virtual town hall, in your virtual house party, make sure the issue they're saying matches or at least links to what they have done. Right, Don. What have they done? Don't get to talking about. I have to get personal. I read in the Boston Globe that Councilor Asabi George says she wants to make Madison Park High School the gem of BPS. The gem of BPS. A pipeline for people to learn cosmetology and trades. The gem of BPS. And I was like, I heard that before. Oh yeah. The last mayor, the one I endorsed in 2013, said the same thing. Now I believed him. I believed him in 2013. I was like, well, the dude is connected to the unions. This would be a good look for him to be able to make that link, right? I mean, I know they're not going to open up all, every union and flood it with people of color. I know how the unions work. They don't work like that. And there's only so many seats and what have you. I'm not trying to make them, bad guy, but I get it. But I heard that from him. So, and then I watched in the first 4 years that didn't happen. And I'm like, man, the union guy, not only did it not happen, but they turned over headmasters. I don't know how many times Madison has flipped their headmaster in the last so many years. So that didn't happen, right? 4 years go by, Madison, from 2014 when the man was sworn in to 2017 when he's running for office again, Madison Park, not the gem, not the pipeline, not transformative in terms of getting young black and brown men and women into the trades via Madison Park Vocational Technical High School. But he was reelected because the leader, so for me, when I endorsed in 2013, I'm like, yo, that's dope. Madison Park is the high school where my friends went. You know what I'm saying? Madison Park is the high school where my neighbors went. So if I can get the mayor, who I'm now endorsing, and a colleague of mine in the House, if I can get him into that mayor's seat, and he can make this school solid, I know the boys and the girls and the young men and women from my neighborhood have a chance to get these jobs that pay $50 an hour They ain't gonna have to sell drugs. They don't have to feel like they got to sell drugs to get by. They're not gonna be stuck in a menial job where they're never gonna be able to own a house and get equity and live the American dream. I'm gonna go with them. But now after 4 years, now again 4 years later, I wasn't there to hold them accountable again and say as an elected official, you didn't represent my community as well. But now as a private citizen, you didn't represent my community as well. 3 more years went by. Madison Park ain't no gem. No disrespect to Madison Park and the students there. I'm talking about it as in terms of its promise. It ain't no gem. They didn't pour into it like they were going to pour resources into it, right? So let me move past Mayor Walsh. He's on his way out. Councilor Salby George been there since 2015 on the city council. A former school teacher, right? Puts that on all our flyers. Former school teacher. And I'm not beating up. I'm singling her out because this is applicable. I'm not singling her out because I have any axe to grind or anything like that. She's been a school teacher. She's worked in schools. She understands the power of schools, right? That's part of her campaign pitch. I don't remember, and I could be wrong. Maybe we should Google it. Maybe we should check her Twitter. Maybe we should check her Facebook. I don't remember her publicly or privately advocating to make Madison Park a jewel. I don't remember her leaning on Mayor Walsh in any part of her tenure, 2015, 16, 17, when he was running for re-election, saying, hey, if you want my support, you're going to have to make Madison Park a gem. I didn't see that. So for her to turn around now and say, I want it to be a gem, I match up what she's saying now to what she's done before. If you didn't advocate for it as a city councilor, why would I believe that you're going to do something as mayor? You didn't even speak to it. You didn't even say nothing about it. Now, all of a sudden, you represented that community. You were an at-large councilor. You represented, hold on a second, I got to let the dog down. He was rocking with me private. Hey, say hello. Okay. Don't rip my mic out, knock the chair over. All in my flow. Life happens. So if I didn't believe it before that she was going to do it, if you didn't do it before, you didn't show me any evidence that was what your priority was, I'm not going to believe it now. It's just a hard sell. You know what I mean? Same thing, and to be fair across the board, Councilor Campbell was also in a news article talking about cutting $50 million in overtime from the police budget. So if you were going to do that, how many budgets, and I don't know the answer, I'm just telling you to check. You ask these questions yourself. If you are now for trimming $50 million out of the police budget, whether you like that, think that's a good idea or not, how many budgets with that $50 million of OT have you voted in favor of over the course of your tenure on the city council? It don't match. Some of that don't match. So that's when I go back to saying righteous leaders. People are only going to be as righteous as you hold them to. You know what I'm saying? We all require correction at some times, right? Don, tell me if I'm hitting on this. We all require correction and direction at times. If the community does not provide that, then they will continue on the path that they're going. Don't think it's going to come from their paid staff. Don't think it's going to come from their colleagues. It's not. It has to come from you. It has to come from me. And I just hope that you start to ask these questions and really move past the cult of personality. This ain't about personality and your campaign colors and how long you work with the person. I get it. You know the person personally. You've worked with them. You've seen them. What are their qualifications for this office? What are their qualifications? What previous on their resume shows that they're ready for this office? We might have made a mistake before. They might not be ready to manage 3,000 employees. They might not be ready to manage employees who are smarter than them, right? If you're the mayor of Boston, and Thomas Menino, may he rest in power, I think he had it figured out, right? Everybody talks about how he knew he wasn't the smartest guy in the room, but he was powerful enough to manage the smart people that were smarter than him. And that's a skill. Believe it or not, managing people is a skill. And if you are threatened or you don't have that skill, then how are you going to manage somebody that knows more about law than you? How are you going to manage somebody that knows more about economic development than you? How are you going to manage somebody that knows more about policing than you? How are you going to build that trust? How are you going to build that relationship with your staff to be able to deliver the things that the residents of the city have asked you to provide? Hopefully we get some folks who don't mind being held accountable. Forget the hopefully, man. It can't be hopefully. Hopefully don't win no elections. It's got to be intentionally, right? It's got to be some discernment about and some faith with work. It's no guarantee, but it can't be a hope. It can't be a wish and a prayer. Like we can't. We are faithful people, man. We are faithful people, but like the good word said, without work is dead, and we dying because there's not enough work happening in our communities. There's not enough work happening amongst us to develop these relationships, to develop this power in our communities. So now I've run my mouth way longer than I wanted to. I ain't running no more. I'm trying to do my part, Don, and I appreciate people that encourage me to go. I'll stay a little while longer because I meant to share this feeling right now, and this is very personal. And it doesn't really have nothing to do with, well, it barely ties in, but this is just me sharing with y'all. If things, and this is not me reminiscing. I'm happy where I am right now. You know what I'm saying? Wifey just came home. I can't wait to stop looking at this screen and look at her and smile and give her a kiss. And that's why I'm starting to wrap this ish up, because I know what my priorities are. If I had not been railroaded the way I was 7 years ago, I would be running for mayor right now. On dogs. If I had been a sitting state rep for the last 7 years, right? If I wasn't illegally removed from office by the ethics committee, and I'm smiling because I'm thinking of how karma has come back and bitten some people in the ass. Former state representative Nangle and Morgan, if you Google them, they are people who sat on the ethics committee who wrongly decided that I broke the rules of the House, which I didn't, and voted to have me expelled from the House illegally, overriding the voting rights of the people in my district, of the district that I represented, the 5th Suffolk. Both of them have since been caught in legal scandals. Nangle, who just pled guilty to 23 charges of embezzlement and money laundering and theft and fraud, who was doing it while he sat as chair of the ethics committee that had the nerve to pass judgment on me. Rep Morgan, Garrett Morgan, same thing. But he snuck out. He got out before he quit before the axe came down. If they had not done to me what they did, I'd be running for mayor. And I'm not saying that I would be the best candidate. I'm not saying that I would be the best leader, but we would be having these conversations I believe, at a more honest level than what's being presented to you now. And so I say that as kind of a cautionary tale to the community. When we talk about developing leaders, think about how you protect those leaders that you're developing. Think about how you wrap around those leaders that you're developing. Like I said, not everybody's perfect, right? Think about how you pass judgment on those leaders. Think about how you support them, and whether you do or not, or whether you just wait kind of passively for them to lead you. Think about that. Sia just checked in now. Now I don't want to go because Sia, she's having great comments. So I was wrapping up, again, I started to get on a rant. I was hoping to have more of a conversation. I appreciate those of you that have been chiming back and forth. I really would like to have the dialogue more than just be up here on the soapbox. But as a former politician, I'm comfortable on the soapbox too. So if there's any questions, direct questions, I'm open to any questions that people might have, about how to organize, where to organize. There's a method to the madness. There's certain precincts and parts of the neighborhoods that have high voter turnout. There's parts of the neighborhood that need increased voter turnouts. You can do that by helping a candidate. You can do that on your own without having to help a candidate. And that's where I think the energy should be pointed. It's like, organize the neighborhood. Forget who the candidate is. Organize the neighborhood. Tell everybody when voting day is. Tell everybody when the town hall forum is. Tell everybody what the questions are that are important. Share the information, empower others. Like Don said, let's lift our bar. Oh, y'all a family? That's good. Let's lift our bar for accountability. But let's make it mean something. Like, let's define what accountability looks like. Let's define what these things look like. They can't just be cliches that we throw around and use. And I'm not saying that, Brother Don. I know you and I are talking, but we know what they mean to us. But for everybody else, they can't just be hot buzzwords that we throw around. Like, accountability has to be created through power. You know what I'm saying? Your parents can hold you accountable because they can ground you or they can whoop your ass. That's how you accountable, because they feed you, right? If your parents didn't feed you, house you, clothe you, or whoop you, or put you on punishment, you wouldn't be accountable to them. As soon as you got away from that, you started to do your own thing. You were no longer accountable to them. So if you don't have that over your elected officials, if you don't have that over your friends, and accountability doesn't have to be, one above the other. It's kind of a, hey, we agreed on this. When you didn't do it, I gotta say something to you. Like, that's accountability. I have to change the nature of our relationship. I have to exact a punishment. Maybe it's me leaving. Maybe it's me punishing you. Maybe it's me taking away my vote. Like, we got the models of accountability. We've seen it. We've seen it in our households. You've been held accountable. People go to work every day. Don, you laughing at me now. I'm just saying, like, that. I use the parents because that's the most relatable piece of accountability. Everybody has parents, and a lot of people are parents. So you understand that accountability. Apply that to your elected official. You ask your child, did you do your homework? You expect them to be accountable to you. But if you don't ask them to show you the homework, and then check to see if they did the homework correctly, I'm giving my own game away. This is what I used to do to my moms and pops. Yeah, my moms and pops, they were both working. So they came home, they were tired. They came home from work, they tired. Now, I'm a smart kid, so they're going to assume that I'm doing the work. But I wasn't doing the work. I was rushing home to talk on the phone or try to meet some girls or hang out with the fellas. You do your homework? Yes. All of it? Yes. Where is it? I put it in my Trapper Keeper. It's in my bag. Trapper Keeper. I went old school on y'all right there. And they were like, okay, cool. And then, at the end of the term, the report card comes home. F, B, B, F, C, C. And now they're tight. What's going on? And Pops is going to march up to the school. And I'm like, oh, man, Pops holding me accountable. Means that now he had to do more work. Rather than just ask me yes or no, now he's on his way to the school. Now he's talking to my teachers. Now he's talking to the principal. Now he finds out I'm not doing my homework because the teachers are like, well, he never turns his homework in. So now he finds out I was lying to him. So now accountability, what does accountability look like? It changes. Now he becomes more strict. Now I might get slapped in the head one time. I'm not advocating for that. I don't like that. I ain't like that. Thick Panamanian hands. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I can't go out with my friends anymore. And now when Ma Dukes asked if I did my homework, she's like, let me see it. That's accountability. That's how it changed. The action has to get a reaction, and it has to be equal. You know what I mean? It's not just, I'm gonna elect this person. Oh, they black. That's a woman. They black. They Latino. That should be good. Let me send them all. That should be good. No, it doesn't work like that. So I'm at an hour and a minute. I'm gone. I'm gone. Thank you. I see you. Thank you for checking in. Who else checked in? Everybody that checked in. Conrad, Akeem, I appreciate y'all. And for those that didn't say anything, I appreciate y'all too. I'm just hoping that this, again, the takeaways are that we got a lot more to do. And James, Mackie, Toy, I appreciate the work y'all are doing. Some of the people in this thread, like, I hope y'all are linking, because y'all are the people that are doing the work. There are coalitions being built. Please join one. Please pay attention to what James Mackie is doing. Pay attention purposefully. Pay attention to what Toy is doing. Pay attention to what Senator Wilkerson is doing. Pay attention to what Mariano Hammond and Eric Estevez are doing. Pay attention to what Shagun Idowu and Beckma is doing. Read the Universal Hub. Read the Bay State Banner. Step outside your comfort zone. Call your city councilors and ask them for something. See if they deliver it. Just do something different than you did yesterday. I'll see y'all later. Love in your home.